Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Senator under investigation. Also, the V-Team takes a look at tenure reform. And Speaker Mike Hubbard's legal counsel leaves the building.
To me, a lawyer is basically the person that knows the rules of the country. We're all throwing the dice, playing the game, moving our pieces around the board, but if there's a problem, the lawyer is the only person that has read the inside of the top of the box. I think one of the fun things for them is to say objection. Objection! Objection, Your Honor. Objection, of course, is the adult version of afraid not. To which the judge can say two things. He can say overruled, which is the adult version of afraid so. Or he can say sustained, which is the adult version of duh.
Duh. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics. With your host, Bill Brett. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Good morning.
Good to be back
And roll
with y'all.
Tide tomorrow
We're glad
night.
to have you back. We missed you so much. I'm glad to be back. I had to have a little fireworks before the show got started because since I've missed New Year's. But anyway.
Yes,
everybody
scared everybody to death.
death.
We thought it was a terrorist attack. A lot of breaking news over the holidays. One of the stories that we were able to report, Senator Phil Williams from Rainbow City, when he came to the Senate, had 0 consulting clients or professional clients. After being in the Senate 5 years, he now boasts 43 professional or consulting clients. Now, he's an attorney, but he lists these on his ethics form. It's very vague and very suspicious. In fact, we have been informed by officials within the administration that Senator Phil Williams is under investigation by law enforcement for the possibility of some ethics violations. It's just speculation right now. The investigation is ongoing. Susan, you were a part of the research.
I was. We did have a consultant that contacted us as a result of that report, saying that these were reoccurring litigants. So what we did was we went and pulled the Alicourt records to find out that, from 2010 to 2014, he only had 3 reoccurring litigants, one of which was Advanced Imaging of Gadsden, which is also Advanced Imaging of Alabama, ServPro, and Butler Electric. Now, and it looks from what we can see, in fact, I believe Mac Butler even said it in a response to one of our articles, that he is a debt collector for him.
Right.
That we can see. The other, 15 miscellaneous contracts, we're not really sure exactly who that is.
Well, and Claire, he says he represents associations. Now, there are some associations that are not lobbyists, but he lists several associations. I mean, it's strange that a guy goes from 0 to 43, even if he's an attorney.
Yeah, I mean, innocent till proven guilty. I'm a little surprised by all this, but it appears on the surface to me a little bit egregious when you've only had 3 or 4 repeat clients, now going to 43 in a 1 year serving as a senator.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you get a lot of perks, and they have to make a living. I understand that, and it's hard to make a living when you're in the Senate working all the time.
Jack, Phil Williams has always come off as a holier-than-thou type of guy. He's a colonel in the reserves. They call him satirically flat top in the Senate. What's your take on these 43 clients?
Now, in his defense, he doesn't have to name some of them because the statement of economic interest does not require that.
Right.
But as a public official, I believe they need to change that form so that we know the sunlight is shining on what he's doing. And if he represents 14 or 15 professional associations, it may be the Library Science Association that has 22 members that does not have lobbying business, but it could also be the road builders. We don't know because he doesn't have to specify.
Right.
And that, doesn't pass the smell test.
Claire, why
Yeah, I
is
mean,
it
there
that-
needs to be a little bit more disclosure with that. I mean, I think with any legislator like that, even though there's attorney-client privileges, you have no idea what you might be doing for that client. There's an array of different things you can do for clients.
Well, lobbyists have to list every one of their clients, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And every issue that we may lobby under, whether it's economic development, where it's taxes, where it's against a particular bill, or for
why
against a
give these
particular bill.
guys a pass? I mean,
Any elected official, I think, should be held to those. And also those with cabinet positions, we need to see where their money's coming from to know what their motivations are.
Well, the other thing about associations, if, hypothetically you use the library and say you use the professional engineers or architects or something like that, if and then he's pushing legislation for them or voting on education committees or something to benefit his clients, then that's very questionable.
gray
right there.
area.
In other words,
It's almost the
a conflict
Patricia
of
Todd
interest.
thing. Is he their lobbyist? He's serving in the legislature. He has a vote on issues that affect his clients, and he's lobbying on their behalf.
if he's got one IT client, then you go back to the STARS program. He was the one that sponsored that legislation that got STARS in place. So if he's got an IT client in there, there's a question
well,
there.
there's 15 miscellaneous, and that ethics form is like this. It gives you all kinds of choices. Now, he listed he represents banks, he represents loan companies.
Well, maybe
Who
that,
are they?
to his credit, maybe he is a debt collector for banks, for loan companies, and if he is, I can see that, okay, but that's 43, and then there's 15 that are just kind of flipping out there in the wind.
But he's also the city attorney for the city of Altoona in Etowah County.
Well, he wrote a letter to Jim Sumner right after he took office and said that he was quitting his job with Tax Break, which is a tax preparing company, and going into private practice. And conveniently, all that private practice has really paid off. But I mean, Jack, it just doesn't pass the smell test, I don't think.
It doesn't. And, I don't really know Phil Williams, but, he passes himself off as a decent, honest guy. And this may not be a dishonest gesture, but it just,
that way.
y'all, we got to look at the appearance of impropriety,
Right.
especially elected officials.
You
And
know,
let's say he collects for Regions Bank. Well, they're going to be in his ear about collection, but how do we know they're not in his ear about, we really need your vote on this this bill coming
well,
up?
and that's another point. He sits on the Banking and Insurance Committee in the Senate, okay?
Yeah. So who is more hated than a politician?
A lawyer.
A debt collector.
Most of whom are lawyers.
We got about a minute and a half, so I want to skip to this next thing. The legislature, and this is Mac Butler, who owns Butler Electric, he is sponsoring a bill to raise gas tax. I mean, Claire, do people really want their gas taxes raised? I mean,
Well, I think the road builders have been trying for it for years. I would say that Mr. Layfield and his organization would be 100% behind this, as well as the Alabama Pavement Association and maybe Cement and everybody else. We seem to have pretty decent taxes, federal and state already. I don't know. I mean, if they may look at this as a fair tax because this would impact all Alabamians, not just those that smoke or drink or eat fast food things or.
well, why not a toilet paper tax, Jack? I mean,
Wait a minute now. We don't need to be taxing pine trees the last
You
time
don't
I
need things
checked.
that'll bankrupt you. I mean, come on. She's got 3 kids.
I mean, seriously though. I mean, Dr. Thunder, they want to raise soda taxes, gas. I hate taxes.
Well,
I'm
I guess somebody's thinking in the big scheme of this is every citizen of the state uses gasoline because we are Southerners and we are in love with our automobiles.
Oh, yeah, we're going to drive.
We are.
We're gonna drive.
And my understanding is the governor's already promised it to the road builders
Well, he said
several
he wouldn't-
months ago.
My understanding was he said he would not be the lead voice on this. He would support it. And I think
that's
he
what it
told
is.
some associations, so I think probably this House and Senate.
Well, that's going to be the last voice on this issue. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis.
Dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damned hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum government.
The V is sponsored by Spot On Strategies Group.
Love 'em sometimes.
Sadly, this happens too often in families with autistic children.
First nightmare, their child wanders off, disappears, and is nowhere to be found.
Where her body was found just a couple hours ago.
An autistic boy wanders away from home and dies.
Welcome to the Voice of Alabama Politics. Beth, nice to have you here today.
Good to be back. How are y'all doing?
Doing great, doing great. I know a subject that we thought was over. We did not think we would be hearing about this again, Beth, but Chief Justice Roy Moore issued an administrative opinion saying that the probate judges in Alabama did not need to issue marriage license for gay couples. What's going on?
So I have a theory about this. Whenever Roy Moore does something crazy, I get calls from all over the country going, what is your Chief Justice doing? And I have to try and explain Roy Moore to people from other states. But I think this time I was having a phone call with a friend last night, and what I said was, with all of this that's going on with funding the court systems, you know, Roy Moore has been having a big problem getting the legislature to give him his money. I think he's trying to shore up public support. So when the legislature comes back into session, he can advocate for the budget for the judicial department, and people in Alabama like him. I mean, this is a popular issue, whether it should be or not. It's a popular issue among Alabama voters.
Okay, you mentioned in the statement it says you don't need to issue these marriage licenses. So that's very different versus saying you shall not. So he's just issued a personal opinion. And of course, we know that is his personal opinion. He just happens to be the Chief Justice.
Because he's not trying to get himself in legal trouble. He knows better than to go against the Supreme Court. He's done that before. This way, he can kind of tiptoe around it. The public won't know the difference between may and shall, and he wins both ways.
Well, Roy Moore is usually, whatever you want to ascribe his motives, Chief Justice Moore is usually right on the law. And he's certainly right on the pulse of the people of Alabama. Susan, I mean, this guy is a brilliant politician. He's also a brilliant jurist, but this just seems...
Well, it is a little, off kilter there. But the bottom line is each probate judge in all 67 counties, they're going to personally make that decision. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. So that's the bottom line. He's made a big wave, and it's a PR thing. Right. But every probate judge is going to make their own decision.
It says by state law that they have the right to issue or not issue any licenses. But Roy Moore is a political animal. He does, though, base his stuff wherever he can find it in fact of the law. Now, I can't see it right now, and I'm talking to several people. They can't see where the basis is. But he has to have something in order to be able, or he wouldn't go out on a limb like this.
I just think that's his personal beliefs, and I understand.
I know it's his personal beliefs.
And it's probably the personal beliefs of at least 60% of Alabamians.
Absolutely.
But if the Supreme Court's ruled, whether you like it or not, there's nothing we can do about it.
That's the law of the land, and we need to abide by it.
I tell you, the big row, what we heard earlier this week, is when Obama came out and did that executive order on guns.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, you don't try to take our guns, right, Claire?
No. All he did is help all the Republicans in the southern states in the presidential primaries because we like to pack our heat in the South.
Could you not just hear the money pouring into the NRA right that minute? Yeah.
Well, I mean, what, 11? I mean, stock in Smith & Wesson went up 11% or 12%, Smith & Wesson.
Right. I mean, the president's the best gun salesman I've ever seen. But the fact of the matter is that, gun violence is a big issue in this country, and it is something that steps have to be taken to address. And whether those steps are training or treatment for mental illness, whatever those steps are, and whether or not you agree with the president's method or not, I mean, you can't deny that this is a problem that is in desperate need of a solution in this country.
But if you take
banning guns is not the answer.
He hasn't banned guns. Claire, mine's still sitting right there in my purse.
I know. But that's just, but making a crazy statement like that, that's just a part of our amendments to the right to bear arms.
Yeah,
okay?
and down south, I mean, like you said, we're basically raised around guns. Mm-hmm. When the president said that thing about we cling to our guns, God, and religion, well, yeah, that's what we do in the South.
Well,
that's the way we are.
And to your point, Beth, really, with most of the crimes that happen with guns, mm-hmm. the people that get the guns and harm people with the crimes, they don't own those guns. 8 times out of 10, they've stolen those guns from somebody else.
Or they've gotten them illegally somehow.
The mental health component I found very interesting, and Baron Coleman brought this up on his radio show. He said, we all would say somebody who has mental health problems should not, should pass a background check on getting guns, right? He said, but what if they decide that mental health problems means Xanax or Zoloft
or ADHD? And I'm concerned that, I was talking with a friend about this morning. I'm concerned that it's going to discourage people from treating mental illness, or that it might, in fact, get people to self-treat with whatever methods they can find rather than seeking qualified medical care. And that would be a tremendous problem, to have people just taking whatever pills they can get their hands on.
And that's a big problem that we have in the state of Alabama anyway, is mental health kind of takes the back burner to anything else in our budget, and that's going to become an increasing problem.
Because prescription drugs are a major issue as far as drugs and teens all over this country.
It's amazing to me, though, that issue is so unifying. It's like Claire said, every candidate for dog catcher to governor went guns, guns, guns.
There was a meeting you and I were at this week when we were in a massive public place, and I counted my safety by how many people I knew were armed around the table.
Well, it's gotten bad. It really has. But the thugs are the ones mostly with the guns, and that's the problem.
They're causing the problems with the guns.
Coming up this session, President Pro Tem Dale Marsh has said he is coming with a giant education package. Beth, one part of that package is going to be tenure reform, or we like to say, no more tenure for you.
Yeah, I'm not having it. Our teachers have gotten the short end of the stick at every single turn. It's time, if we want good educators in the state of Alabama, we've got to pay them like professionals, and this is just ridiculous. I can't believe that we're coming with this at this point.
Well, the only thing I see...
We haven't seen the devil in the details yet.
Well, we've seen some of them.
But I don't trust this group at all to try and say, once you look at the details, this is going to be just fine for teachers. Not happening. No, they've never proven once that they're looking out for teachers.
It's scary. I mean, I don't know, and Claire's right. We don't know everything.
We don't know yet.
But the thing that really scares me about the whole idea is they're gearing this toward teaching to the test. In other words, they're qualifying teachers based on how well they can teach the children to take the test, not how well they can teach the children. Remember, to learn. When I was in school, if I had a test that enumerated something, I said, well, my cat eats green beans. Okay, well, I could remember for that short period of time what that meant.
But teaching for testing, I think, is the wrong thing.
It's a wrong thing. I'm very
and I agree with your point. I mean, the point is, I hope they don't do it like they did the accountability bill. I hope that they bring it out, there's open discussion, and it's full disclosure, and everybody sees what it is before they vote.
One of the crazy things on this test, you're supposed to be evaluated by the superintendent, the principal, other teachers, and your students. How many of my teachers would have gotten a raise?
I can't think of maybe one or two.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't go to public school, so I can't get mad.
I had my favorites, and I had the ones that I would have had fired if I could have.
Yeah, no doubt.
Not all fired. They were terrible. They were wretched.
I guess there should be evaluations. There's evaluations in the private sector and all that, and I agree with it. But the basis for it needs to be very strict and very well laid out in how they're going to do it.
I don't want any snot-nosed 5-year-old telling me how well I've done teaching a class. We're going to have to hold it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. A lot happened over the holidays. One of the more astounding stories to us was we discovered that Larkin Martin, V. Larkin Martin, the woman who was on the Ethics Commission, the vice chair of the Ethics Commission, had never, ever filed her statement of economic interest, which is one of the first things they tell you you've got to do. We reported that, and 5 hours after we reported that story, they announced from the Ethics Commission that Ms. Martin had stepped down. She resigned from the commission, but on her way out the door, she did file her statement of economic interest. Nothing interesting in it. But Jack, why would the vice chair not fill it out, and why would she resign?
I don't know if it was laziness or just disdain for the system, or there was something she didn't want people to know. But why did it take over a year for someone to discover this? Why did it take y'all to discover it?
Well, let me say, I know her. We're close in the same age. I knew her in D.C. years ago, and she's a very bright, successful businesswoman. I also think that the executive director and the president of the Ethics Commission should inform each new member that these are things you have to do. So did they intentionally not do that? Because the word on the street that I've been hearing from people is they wanted to get rid of her because she was one of those people that kept saying, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that.
Really?
I think she's a pretty straight up and narrow ethical person. I've known her, I'm not close friends with her, but I've known her since we were fairly young girls.
Well, and that's an interesting take, one that we have not heard. One of the things that we did in fact hear was that she was informed by then director Jim Sumner. Mm-hmm. He had an orientation class where she was notified that she had to turn it in. Also, the chief administration over there informed her that she did. So she was informed, but for some reason she did not turn it in. And her ethics filing looks absolutely benign for a wealthy individual. I mean, Susan, there may not be anything nefarious there, but it just seemed odd.
The timing is what seems odd to me. And yes, there was a 3-hour orientation, I believe, in which that's a part of the general orientation is filing your ethics form, in which you probably would have been informed at that time. You don't have to file it for this year, but you will have to file it next April. But just due to the fact that we had kind of let people know that this stuff was coming down the pike come Monday, as a result, on Saturday, she files the report. Sunday, she resigns. So by Monday, it's kind of a nil story. I'm just concerned about the timing there.
Again, I'm going to go back to I smell a rat somewhere.
Yeah, well,
I think she was putting some kinks in the logjam over there, and people weren't getting some things they wanted because there's a lot of annual events that have gone on for years and years and years that have not occurred in the last 6 months.
That's totally possible. You know, we know that there's, unfortunately...
Lots of beavers in the dam in the state of Alabama,
Yeah,
right?
Unfortunately, Jack, as we often say, in Alabama politics, there are no sides, they're just players, right?
Yeah.
Well, if these have not been looked at before, it's time we start looking at them now.
Yeah.
We were just talking about reports in the first segment. It's time now. We need transparency to see what's going on here, and they need to have their feet held to the fire to make their
Wait a
reports.
minute, it's selective. It depends on who you are, whether they want to check you out.
I know that, Claire.
Well, one of the biggest stories was Mike Hubbard's criminal lawyer, J. Mark White. I call him the Charlie Brown of the bar.
The evil Charlie Brown.
The evil Charlie Brown.
Don't insult Charlie Brown like that.
He withdrew from the case, Jack.
I don't understand it. I don't understand it. You know, you talk to folks who are lawyers, you know, and they say, well, hell, it's because he owed him all that money and he wasn't going to keep going forward with that big of a debt hanging over Mike. Then other people think conspiratorially that maybe this was another delay tactic. But anyway.
But to your point, let's say, it's not as if Mark White's his own lawyer. He's got plenty of other lawyers lined up.
No.
So for them to use this a ploy and go to the judge and say, oh, well, we're going to have to hire new counsel.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of other critters on the line, on the feed trough.
Yeah.
From day one, Jack.
I mean, you've got Lance Bell, you've got Phil Adams and his entire firm out of Opelika. I tell you, Phil Adams out of Opelika is a better trial lawyer, from what we understand, than Mark White. But Susan, to cut and run at the last minute, that just stinks to high heaven.
Well, you know, as reporters, you know, we always know if there's something they release at 4 o'clock on a Friday, something smells. Well, they released this at 3:30 on a Friday on New Year's Eve, when there's nobody around. So that and did it under seal. So that in itself smells that they're trying to hide something or trying to do something nefarious.
Of course, the judge immediately unsealed it. They were just trying to
did.
sneak it by there.
But that's what makes me think something's afoot there.
Maybe he didn't want a big L on his reputation, Mark White.
Yeah. Well, that's
Well,
one of the
that's-
things I've heard is
that's
like,
a theory.
hey, if you've got a case and it's a loser and you're not getting paid, get out.
Well, and there's another rumor that Mike wanted a plea bargain and Mark said no, and then there was a rumor that Mark wanted a plea bargain and Mike said no.
Yeah.
But then I'm sorry, Jack.
It doesn't matter. I mean, we'll figure out the truth.
Yeah, it'll come out. It just may take a while. These guys are slick. I'm telling you, they're
One
slick.
of the reports, and I always come back to the numbers. I'm sorry, that's just the accountant in me. The numbers show that in 2014, he paid Mark White and all those attorneys $300,000. The newest report that came out this week on campaign finance for Mike Hubbard showed a total for the year of 2015 of $38,000 he paid.
Now, he has a legal defense fund, which we understand is being run by Republican Representative Jack Williams. And we hear that he and Rob Riley, the son of former Governor Bob Riley,
Making calls,
were
dollar for
making
dollars.
calls, Claire.
That's what I heard too. They didn't call me, thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure
I wouldn't take their call.
I'm sure you'd been willing to stroke him a check, right?
No, but I would have taken Jack Williams' call for sure, but I didn't get a call.
I wouldn't have taken Jack Williams' call. I don't know Rob Riley, but surely he can find somebody.
You know, the problem.
Not as sleazy as Jack Williams.
The problem for Jack Williams is if he calls a lobbyist or a principal,
Yeah, he can't do that.
cha-ching, he's right in the
he's
same.
right in the mix with them.
Yeah.
Right in the mix
Well,
with them.
I think when you lay it all out, to me, it looks like some pretty desperate ploys.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I mean, and my understanding is that the calling wasn't all that successful to start with. And usually, don't you give to a legal defense fund when you just know that person's innocent and they're being treated wrongly? And not many people, after the emails came out.
No, excuse me. Not when you're an elected House or Senate member. And you're going to lobby them, they give to them. That's the way, that's how you twist the arm. Excuse me.
We're going to have to hold it right there. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next Sunday.